Hey folks, Dust here, and some of you may know me as a content creator and commentator and such from CSGO, but we're not talking about CSGO today, we're talking about Battalion 1944. With me is Joe Brammer, who I've interviewed before, by the way, and this interview is really going to focus a lot more on the current, right? We're not going to get into like the background of everything or, you know, the past. If you want some information on like the history and some of the background information about some of the development team, be sure to check out the interviews I've already done with Joe Brammer as well as Fantasy. But this is really going to focus on ramping up for early access, right, for Battalion 244. So we're finally away from NDAs. We're now ready to talk about this game, and so I wanted to sit down with Joe Brammer here, as he is kind of one of the faces of the game, I guess you could say, right? One of the developers that, you know, we see a lot more publicly, that it usually is the one kind of the PR team in one man, so to speak.
Well, I'm the studio lead, so I kind of do a bit of everything, but yeah, I mean, I dabble everywhere, I guess. But recently, I mean, we like having a face on our game so that people can feel like they can approach us and tell us what's wrong with our game. And that's my job, is to sometimes be the punching bag, but also I get to be the guy that people praise. But there's a whole team of people here doing a lot of good work. So yeah, I get to be the face for this one, I guess.
There you go. So I know you kind of mentioned you did a live stream where you actually answered some questions, and if people want to see that, I think that's on the Battalion 1944 subreddit. But I know that in the video you kind of mentioned that, you know, we're basically 2 years from when you first made that Kickstarter video that was kind of the beginnings of this game, and so you've been basically going for 2 years now. And I know at the beginning, and even when we did our last interview, you kind of mentioned that your goal or vision for Battalion was to kind of, you know, revitalize the old school FPS and kind of have this perfect marriage almost between, you know, COD 2 weaponry and environments with, you know, COD 4 movement and mechanics. And do you feel like that's still your goal and vision, or do you think the vision has somewhat changed through this whole process the last couple of years?
I mean, the goal has stayed the same, to make you know, a classic old school FPS game. It wasn't really for nostalgia purposes. We weren't just like, oh yeah, we want to, you know, we want to go back to those days, because those days are kind of, they're gone. You can't recreate those old games. It just doesn't work. But what you can do is you can look at them and say, why were they so good, and what are they missing? Like, what are the good bits from games in 2018, and what are the good bits from those old games? And for us, movement and sort of simplicity was the massive part of old games that we wanted to recreate. When we put up, say, footage on Facebook of our game now, you get a lot of kind of the Battlefield fans come in, and the console guys are like, "Oh, your game looks terrible. It looks like 2004," and we're like, "Yeah, that's the point." Like, unfortunately, one of the reasons that Call of Duty like 2 and Enemy Territory was so good is because they will literally just have a flat gray wall for gameplay instead of a massive rubble destroyed building, and it just makes picking out players so much easier. And I think Counter-Strike does that the best. They kind of have this stylized look. But yeah, once we realized that needed to be done really early on, we didn't necessarily bash our visual style, but it wasn't at the top of our list. We just wanted a game to look and feel good. So yeah, and then we took you know, everything in Counter-Strike that's good about that and Overwatch, and said, let's put it into one game and meld it all together, and I think we got a winner there.
There you go. So we've been through a pretty long alpha process now, and I've played through most of them, and obviously you're familiar with it, and so we can kind of go through that, because I think, you know, what people see in early access, they won't maybe realize like what came before it and how it got to that point. And so I kind of wanted to just ask you in general, what do you think were some of the biggest changes that have been made in this game throughout the alpha process?
I guess maybe there was a time where we didn't believe in ourselves enough pretty early on, where so we knew that Call of Duty were doing a World War II game very early. Mm-hmm. And before we started making Battalion, I was like, I don't really want to make a competitive game or esport kind of focused game, because they're so hard to get right. But at the time I was playing a lot of Counter-Strike, and then Overwatch was coming up, and I was looking forward to that. And you know, I was like, eventually we were like, you know what, Call of Duty are going to take that casual market, and it's going to last a couple of months, and then we're just going to, you know, they're not going to ever win the competitive side. They're not, unless they actually say this is a competitive game. But because we're part of that competitive community from Call of Duty, from Counter-Strike, from Overwatch, we know what the players were looking for and what they wanted and what was missing from those games. So we basically, I guess the point early on we changed, like very early in the first few days or weeks, really, we were like, you know what, let's do it. Let's make a competitive game and let's make it focused on being the best and practicing and getting better and winning ultimately is what it's about. And you know, that's a big turnoff for a lot of people. But there's a lot of games out there for them, and there's not a lot of games that are similar to Counter-Strike. And Counter-Strike's an amazing game. I love it. But this is just a different approach to that style of game, competitive shooter. There really aren't many competitive shooters that come out and survive long. You know, this year we've seen Lawbreakers and Quake Champions, and they were both, you know, not what we wanted them to be. But for Battalion, I think we're learning from their mistakes, and we kind of saw them very early on. So we've been making changes as everything goes, and maybe the biggest, this is a long one, maybe the biggest one we saw was, you know, PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds come out and just blow everything out the water, and all the rules changed, and I think we were kind of friends with Brandon Green pretty early on, and he really likes Battalion, which is cool. But you know, we were speaking to him like, yeah, this is you're making it really difficult for us right now. But you know, then you kind of look at their game as not so competitive as they want it to be. So we're trying to, you know, go into that competitive community there that has grown and build our own competitive community kind of around this like need or want for a competitive game, because people are kind of a little bit burned out on Counter-Strike, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, you know, right now the big PC shooter esports titles are essentially Overwatch, who just launched Overwatch League, and then Counter-Strike. And Quake Champions has had some, like, I've seen them at some DreamHack events, and I've definitely seen some interest there, but I'm not sure, you know, if that's going to continue to resonate or not. And it feels like, you know, Counter-Strike and Overwatch, though, are so extremely different, right? I mean, you have, like, a class-based shooter that it's really, you know, different map types, all this crazy stuff, and then you have, like, Counter-Strike, which is Counter-Strike the same way it's been for, you know, 18 years. Obviously, some graphical updates and some tweaks and stuff to how guns and movement works, but for the most part, it's going to feel familiar to anyone who's played Counter-Strike before at any point in history. And so it seems like in the PC market, esports-wise, there might be a little niche that the Battalion can carve out that kind of nestles itself between the two, in the sense that it's very familiar to Counter-Strike players, but I mean, you're sprinting, you're aiming down sights, you have this strafe jumping, you have these different mechanics that make it different than Counter-Strike. I mean, I've played Counter-Strike for years. I played COD 4 Pro Mod. I'm playing this Battalion game. It's clearly different. So I guess my point is, though, is how much of a niche do you think you can carve out? I mean, do you really, like, how big do you think the community really can be for a game like this?
I guess I kind of disagree with the term niche, because I mean, we come from making indie games. Like the Turing Test was our last game, and you know, that's a niche. Like if we still sold over 200,000, nearly 300,000 copies of that. And to Valve or to Activision, DICE, that's a niche, because that's quite small. But to a small studio and to people, you know, maybe we won't have a $10 million prize pool or anything, but we've got a prize pool set up. We've got six figures. We've got people, a lot of big companies looking to run events and tournaments.
Okay.
And we've got like a lot of backing there. You know, Square Enix are behind the fact that we want this to be a competitive game. They also want it to be a competitive game, which is great because they're, you know, one of the world's biggest games publishers. And you know, so I don't really ever agree with people when they say it's a niche.
Okay.
Especially when, I mean, I wish I could say the numbers, but if I showed you our beta sign-up stuff, which is usually, you know, I guess I can say that we predicted, between us and Square Enix, they predicted around 10,000 sign-ups, and we predicted, I said, no, we want 20,000. We'll be happy with, I think the Square said, we'll be happy with 10,000. I said, okay, well, I want 20,000. And we're now definitely over the hundreds of thousands. So, you know, it's a lot bigger than people realize. I think the demand for this type of game is very high. So I don't really think it's a niche, but we've just got the niche mentality of like, we're super indie, and if somebody tells me my game shit, I'll say why, and if they say because you're an asshole, I'll say, oh, you're a dickhead. So, and that's like my super. Like,
there you go.
We don't look super professional that way, but we get the honest answers from our community, and they get the honest answers from us, and it works better. So yeah, not niche, but we take maybe an independent approach to it. More like a for the fans, by the fans approach, I guess.
Right. So let's dig through the alpha a little bit more. I'm going to get to the esports stuff in a second, by the way, because I know you already kind of dropped some information there, just a little bit. You gave them a little appetizer. We'll get to the esports side in a second, but I really wanted to kind of focus on alpha a bit, because I feel like some of the biggest things that have changed, at least for me in alpha, is movement. I think has been something that's constantly been tweaked. Speed, the power of the strafe jump, some of these things that are very just so fundamental, I think, to what you're doing with the game and what it's trying to represent from previous games. So I think that that's probably been one of the areas that we've seen the most tweaking in the alpha. I think the biggest one is the most recent one, by the way. Like, I think the war you changed the jump animation recently, like this most recent alpha, that was huge, man. That's made such a world of difference on being able to hit people, jump strafing around walls and stuff like that. Because before I felt helpless when someone did it to me. Because I'm a Counter-Strike guy, so like it's just ingrained in my brain to like hold angles and like cut angles and stuff like that. And I realized like that's not going to work. In a lot of situations. Sometimes it'll work, but other times it's like no, you have to be able to beat this movement mechanic and be able to conquer it and then know how to use it. So, what are your thoughts on how movement has developed throughout the alpha stage?
I mean, it's been interesting, and I'm glad you said that. Like, your Counter-Strike player holds angles, because I think Howard's the same. He's one of the other designers, and he holds angles, and that's fine in Call of Duty. You can do that, but the difference is that in CS you kind of have this level where all the heads are going to be. Whereas in Call of Duty kind of games, someone will jump out and strafe, and they'll go like this, like their character has an arc, whereas no one really jumps around corners in CS at any good level anyway. And,
unless you have a scout. Go ahead.
I think you have to. But, it's like when, and then the CS player is going to aim at the corner where they're like, I'm holding this angle, and the player jumps out, and they're really high. So I don't think CS players are quite as good at like getting the flick reaction, like the nice, just like their ammunition feels more, they want to protect it more. Whereas in Call of Duty, you just kind of like, oh, I missed it, I'll just try again. Like, maybe a little bit more spammy, I guess. That's pretty much that. But movement itself has, it's definitely evolved from early on. Just us learning, like, okay, we've made a few games before, but let's see how this goes for a shooter. We learned a lot early on. It was, I think you played in the original Alpha 1.
Yep.
And it was like Quake. Like, it was, you could fly everywhere. But now I think every Alpha, it's gone down and down and down and down and down and down. And eventually we were just like, you know what, we think it's at a good place. And the final thing that really nailed the movement in a weird way was the distances and the weapon damage. So the fall off of the machine guns, because everything was just a laser. It was like loads of railguns, because we were so scared that the Kar-98, the one-shot rifles, the snipers were going to be so powerful, which they are because they're a very high-skill weapon, that we wanted to make sure the other weapons had power too, so we gave them power. And then just everything was too powerful. So we nerfed a few of the machine guns, but then we give them like one-shot headshots, so you've got the ability to be skillful, but also at a lower level you can just spray and it's fine.
Right.
And ultimately this movement fix that we did in Alpha 7 2 weeks ago, the networking stuff now we've got the base game. This is what people don't really understand, is it's taken us 2 years to make a game. Keep in mind that Call of Duty have a base version of their game that they modify on top every year, and they take 3 years to do it. We built a game from scratch in less than 2 years, and we just smoothed out the networking. Now we have like a base game, and people, like, you can see a player now move across like your screen when they're in the air without any like stutter steps in there. But also the kind of like gorilla, like we changed the animation from like a pencil to like, so the guy goes like this and separates his legs, and he just looks at this ball going through the air, and it's just such a big target. And just cool design things like that are, we're finding our way to kind of... That instantly
saved my KD ratios in Alpha, by the way. Like, I was like, yes, I can hit these motherfuckers now.
Yeah, once they're actually able to aim, like, it helps so much. But I think this is... I always ask the community, and maybe it's slightly too aggressive way that some of them like, but like I said, we like to be really honest, and it'll be better for the game and everybody. I don't like it when the community say, this is how you fix something, and try and tell us, because they don't know, and the players don't think about big picture things, and that's fine. Like, we have a lot. There's so many things in the background. Like, for instance, they're like, "Oh, why don't you just add money?" Like, that's not really a new game, and that's not really changing much, and that's just stealing someone's idea. And yeah, it's we needed something different. But with the movement, a lot of people thought like, oh, the networking's broken, and they're too fast, so they jump around the corner too fast. That wasn't really the issue. It was literally that, okay, the networking needed smoothing out. That was one. But the fact that we were just like, let's make the character animation bigger so that they can actually hit the target. No player suggested that. That was us just working and doing our jobs. And one thing players forget is that, okay, you may have 2,000 hours on Counter-Strike, but I also have 2,000 hours on Counter-Strike. I also have hours on games that you also have. But I've also been modding since I was 11. I studied for 2 years at college video game design. I studied for 3 years at university video game design. I started a company making video games. I've made 3 video games on different consoles. I know what I'm talking about too. I just think you guys have a bunch of good ideas, and you guys play the game so much that you can help us. But It should be a working together thing. Don't think that developers don't know what they're doing. And I think now we're at this nice stage where we've got a game and everyone can see it. We're kind of coming into our this is the best time right now to be getting involved with Battalion, because we're changing so much as we go. And this beta is going to be really special for people getting their voice out there about what they think and voicing their opinion. Just ask that people be respectful of the fact it's not going to happen overnight.
Right.
Just takes time.
So. Quickly, do you see movement changing dramatically through the beta process and into early access, or do you think you've pretty well honed in what you want this game to be? Yeah, I agree.
Issues with sprint in terms of the recharge rate. You feel kind of sticky, like you keep having a sprint. And ultimately, that's the issue with the scale of the maps versus the player and that kind of thing. But the solution may just be to allow people to sprint for longer. We haven't decided yet, but I could see that getting buffed. Nothing for sure yet. We'll see how it goes. That's the only movement change I'm envisioning right now.
Okay, cool. So let's get away from movement now. Let's get to some other areas that I think people have talked about a lot in the alpha. Time to kill, I think, is one of the biggest ones that people have debated about a lot. There's been a lot of chatter about time to kill being really, really fast, particularly like in closer range situations. Obviously, coming from Counter-Strike, time to kill can be very quick if you hit a headshot, depending on what gun you use. Obviously, the op is a one-hit weapon unless you leg someone, which I feel like the snipers and Battalion are pretty much the same thing. I guess the difference is that you also have the, Kar98, which is also a one-hit kill, like a sniper, but without a scope. And then you have some of the other rifles that can kill in like 2 hits, even with body shots. And so, coming from a Counter-Strike perspective, usually takes a couple of more hits in body shots to get a kill with most guns. So, obviously, I'm not trying to say this game should be like Counter-Strike or anything like that, but I'm just kind of wondering, because there's been so much chatter about time to kill, what has been y'all's thoughts as a development team about time to kill and where it's at and where you want it to be and things like that?
Well, we agreed with them and with the community that the time to kill was too low. It was just happening way too fast. Like, it was just everything was a laser. It was like having machine rail guns. But I think from about Alpha 5, Alpha 6, we just didn't know how to fix it yet, and we just needed a bit more time to test stuff out and see what happened. And then we decided that it was the fall-off damage, because people were saying, like, oh, the Thompson, for instance, the SMG is too powerful. But it wasn't, because it was meant to be good at close range. You should be getting kills at close range. It has to fight against the shotgun. It has to beat the Kar98 at close range. But at long range, it was still powerful. So it was never like the damage itself. It was like the fall-off. But when you compare it to Counter-Strike, you say Counter-Strike's time to kill is a little bit slower. It's an entirely slower game. I mean, you say you don't have sprint really. You have knife, right? But you don't really have sprint. And it's about setting up very, very specific strats and smokes. And executing things together and communication. And our Battalion has that, a lot of it, but it's also much more about like individual effort as well. You're in Battalion, you will be in a lot of like 1v5s where you have a higher chance of winning and that kind of thing. When you're in a clutch, the game is so far from over because individual effort is such a big thing compared to Counter-Strike. And in terms of time to kill, like, at what level? I mean, pros pretty much hit the headshot like most of the time, or they're always going for the head. Are you talking about like, Legendary Eagle here? Are you talking about like rank S? Like it's.
Yeah, I feel that's probably one of the. I feel like that's one of the biggest issues is like when people are talking about balance problems right now. It's like we really haven't seen the best of the best play yet, so we don't really know, You know, because that's where you're going to get, that's when things will get exploited, and that's when you'll really figure out like where you're at balance wise. Right now, we have like a mixed pool of people playing against each other with no actual ranking system, so you could just have like total scrubs that are really bad playing against like really good players because we're just all in an alpha together. And so I think it becomes really hard to kind of figure out right now. I think once you get into beta, once you get into early access and you start seeing people get into ranks and playing against people of similar skill level, then maybe you could start talking about balance. But I just know there's a lot of chatter about time to kill, like on different forums and stuff like that. And by the way, these questions I'm asking you are a mixture of ones that I've written and ones that I've gotten from the forums and from the subreddit that I thought were good. So I just figured I'd throw time to kill out there because I know it's been one of the hot topics that people have discussed.
I do think we fixed it though, like and I think the community generally agree with this. The time kills me.
Oh, it's definitely better.
The last alpha or two, it got fixed. So I don't really see it as an issue anymore going forward.
Right. So I have basically two more big areas I want to talk about in alpha, and the first one is going to have to be Wartide, right? So this is your baby. This is your competitive system. For those of you who obviously haven't played the alpha, but know Counter-Strike. So in Counter-Strike, you have an economy system. You get money. Obviously, you have to start out ecoing, and then you build up money. You can buy guns. You have to save, blah, 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 blah. Most people know the Counter-Strike economy basics. Wartide is a situation where you start out, like imagine starting out with all of your stuff already, right? But you tap into that war chest throughout the half, and you can basically run out. It's a card system, right? So you have different classes, like what Pathfinders, like the SMG class. You have Marksman, which is the sniper class, and you have Rifleman, which is your Kar 98 and your M1 Grand. Then you have obviously like an auto rifle class, which the name escapes me for that one right now. Heavy, and then you have like the demolition, demolition shotgun. So you have different classes, right? And you start out with so many of each class. You also, certain classes have a grenade and a smoke already built into them, some don't. You also have a pool of smokes and grenades that you can pull from card wise. And then let's see, what else are we forgetting here? You have you have the default class, which basically you can use that as much as you want in a half, and it comes with the smoke and an HE grenade attached to it. It's basically kind of like the rifles are just take a little bit more to kill someone with, though I think you buff the headshot effectiveness of them, right? I've noticed being able to. Yeah, I got one time. I was like, ooh, all right, like this could work. So basically you have the card system, but you start out with it all at the top. Like imagine in Counter-Strike when you start with 16K start money or 12K start money, which you used. So there was some points in time in Counter-Strike Source I remember vividly where you did, but then it drains, right? And to replenish your cards, you have to kill people, collect their cards. You can replenish your cards that way. Also, if you win the round, I'm pretty sure you just keep your card. At least that's how it's felt like in Alpha. Like I've always still had my gun if we won the round and I stayed alive and it carried over.
Yeah, if you stay alive, it carries over. It doesn't deplete.
Right.
I mean, really, it's about like that's where the Counter-Strike players are. I think they're gonna excel is because they're a lot slower. That they will keep their cards in the system a lot more. Whereas then on the flip side, I guess Call of Duty players are gonna go and like go for the card and they'll stretch themselves to pick it up. So
here's another quick question just to verify. So people in Counter-Strike know you can save your gun and carry the next round if you're losing. Can you do that in this game? Because I felt like you at one point said no, you wanted people to go for the clutch, but I feel like I've had some times where it did carry over. So I wasn't sure if it was like a bug or if like you're meant to be able to save a gun if you're losing.
I think we just can't decide.
Okay.
You save your gun right now.
Okay.
But I hate the idea of saving weapons because I think as a spectator sport, to watch somebody sit in a corner is pretty terrible. Like, it's not really a game then. I get it for the long arcing story. I get it, and it works for Counter-Strike. It definitely works. I just think when watching Call of Duty, you've watched the Call of Duty final, Call of Duty 4 final, Call of Duty 4 and 2, not like under that, not over that. The moments that are exciting are when it's 1v5 and
yeah, of course.
They're not like, oh, keep your weapon. They're like, go for it. Let's see what happens. That's the most exciting thing because you never know. Clutch moments can just pay off.
I think you could go for the not saving route, but I feel like you have to have some type of loss bonus system at that point because right now it's like if I'm getting if I'm losing a lot of rounds in a row, unless I'm collecting cards off kills, I run out of cards, and so you feel even more pressure to save. I feel like it creates like the reverse effect, like because you know that your resources are so limited. Like at least in Counter-Strike, yeah, if I go for this, we have a loss bonus coming in, but in this game, it's like, well, shit, we didn't get very many kills this round, so we didn't really collect any cards, so I kind of have to save this one card. So
it depends. I mean, now we're talking about like FPS skill, right? Like, I
Mhm.
mean, I think that the good players are going to be able to come back from not having cards, right? And really, when you play in a team, it's never going to be an issue that you really like you're out of cards. That just doesn't happen. Because 5-5, it's fine. Because you can manage your economy. One way we found is that you take one player who always plays default class, and then you have like 12 more cards or 6 more cards in the ecosystem. So you could, and if you've got a guy who's good at aiming, give him the default class, because just go for headshots and you get a free smoke and a free nade every round, and he can be the utility guy just going for little. You can one-on-one a sniper with a default class and get it if you're good. But his job might just be to lay down the smoke, go in, try and get the picks, just try and get a little pick. That's all you're doing. So, and then that meta hasn't evolved yet. Like, it hasn't even been born. That's just what we're saying. This is what we do in the office. The problems with the card system, and really no one's actually seen it. Everybody says, I think when it goes to early access, that solo queue will be a problem because you play as a team and someone will just be using all the cards, or someone will be using all the grenades. But how is that any different from a guy buying AWP all the time? Yes, I know you get your money back, or a guy picking Hanzo, and I know you can pick what you want, but your team's still going to lose, and it's still frustrating. But those games is two of the most, right now, two of the highest competitive shooters out there. So we just don't know what's going to happen, and people need to kind of like let it play out. Now we've made changes like every week to alpha. People are getting a little bit used to like change this, change that, and that's not going to happen. We are just going to let it play out and see how it goes. Anna in Overwatch is always a good example, because she was like, she came in and everyone was like, she's not very good, but they didn't change her, and they left her for about a month, and all of a sudden all the pro teams were like using Anna all the time and only Anna, and then all the lower ranks picked her up. And it's just a case of finding what that meta is. So, we don't know what's good, what's bad right now. I don't think individuals should be worrying about, but it's not going to be good for solo queue. That's like our job to worry about. Because if it's shit for solo queue, then you're not going to play it, people aren't going to buy it, and I'm going to lose my job. So, my company will go under. So I've got a lot more to lose than you do. So I think, people should kind of just trust us to read it and to evolve it.
If I could just interject, I think that most people think the card system's cool and they like it. It's like the general feel that I get when I'm playing with people and we're talking on the server or we're in Discord. I think the biggest issue that people are having with it, and this kind of ties into what you're talking about, is this idea of like snowballing. Like if you're losing, you feel like, well, shit, like I'm never gonna get a card again. And I think that's the only real gripe people have had. But I think my point is, I think the foundation, the actual system itself, people do think that it's neat and they like it and they enjoy it. I think it's just that one aspect. And so I think you're right. I think it does just come down to letting it play out and then see how it feels when we have like a bigger population and we're seeing people get into like certain ranks and all that good stuff.
About, like, these games rely heavily on pre-nades and set nades and that kind of thing, and strategy. No one fucking has any strategy right now. Everyone's just playing team deathmatch with 2 objectives. Like, give it time. Like, I've seen Fan, the pro player we have here. He's been like sitting there throwing nades, and he knows nades, and he needs to, obviously, a YouTuber needs to make a video saying this is how you do that nade, and then someone look at it and they'll tell their friends, and then they'll make a team, and then that'll happen, and then it'll become the meta, and that takes time. That doesn't happen overnight. And once they realize, you can't rush this fast, or oh my god, nades are really powerful, play utility, the whole game's going to change. But on top of the fact that Elo isn't even in, so will be for early access, but we got beat 13-0. The dev team got beat 13-0 by like just some random guys we were playing against. They were really good. And we were never like, we ran out of cards eventually, but we were never like, oh man, the card system's unbalanced. No, they were just dicking us hard. Like, they were just better.
I get
like, you should be getting beat.
Yeah, I think the message here for people then that want to like hear the thoughts about Wartide is that I think we just need more time, but I think that the development is open to obviously making tweaks if they feel that there is a need for tweaks, but we just don't know if there's a need yet because...
Exactly. We know it's not perfect. We're well aware of that, but I've said numerous times that, like, Overwatch are tweaking their stuff all the time. Counter-Strike still haven't got pistols right. Like, it's not going to happen.
Listen, Joe, stop picking on us, okay? Like... Listen,
it's just like it's just gonna take time and back and forth to the community, and that's why we have a face to talk to, and people can see that we're making changes. Just they need to play for 500 hours before, like I put in 1,000 hours without even being like in the community. So there's a long way to go yet.
Yeah. So the next thing I want to talk about with Alpha, and then we're going to move on to like some questions about the future of the game, is the map pool, right? So I've been playing a shit ton of Coastal and Derailed. I think is the maps I get the most on competitive side. I don't know if that was like intentional because you really wanted to test those maps. Okay, I figured. So I guess from playing those maps, to me they're starkly different because obviously Coastal is like pretty wide open. It feels really balanced to me, at least, like just because there's two sides to the map and both sides have like these open areas to take like long and medium range duels, and it seems pretty well set up for the most part for both teams to really feel like they have a chance to make ground. And then I play a map like Derailed where, which bomb site is it? Not the one in the building, because I know you switch letters around, so that's why I'm confused. Cinema bomb site on Derailed. There's like 5 ways into that bomb site for the attacking team. So that one to me felt a little bit more attack-sided, at least just from my limited no ELO play of it. So I guess my point is with your map pool, Counter-Strike's kind of taking the approach of, well, we're going to have some maps that are CT-sided. We're going to have some maps that are T-sided, but at the end of the day, we're going to have a pool of like, we run off of a 7-map pool in Counter-Strike right now where you're hoping to achieve some type of balance in the sense that we're going to have kind of an equal amount of attack-sided and defense-sided maps. Maybe we have a couple of maps that are really balanced that kind of fit, both sides can feel pretty good about the map. What's the philosophy with Battalion? Do you want some maps that are attack-sided and some maps that are defense-sided, or do you strive to have a balanced map for both sides? Kind of what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, we can always design maps and intend. I mean, we never intend them to be like balanced towards the attackers ever, really. That's creative strats happening. We kind of we like them to give defenders the power, but as an attacker, you need to feel like you have a chance. So you always have to give them like options, right? But again, you said like there's 5 ways into one bomb site. Yeah, there's a lot of ways in this one, but they're also very tight angles, and people haven't really figured out that the shotgun is really good. It's not like other games where it's like the troll weapon. It's like legitimately a class because it feels so good to use. We wanted to make it relevant. So I think it comes to the smoke, which is another thing that people don't really use defensive smokes yet. Well, that's a massive CS thing. Our community right now is mostly built up of COD 4 players, which barely had any defensive smokes. So I'm kind of waiting to see like how that evolves, but in terms of like actual map balancing, we just wanted to make sure every map was very different, because personally with CS, I believe that if they ripped out all of their existing maps like Overpass and Dust for sure, Nuke, everything, just took them all out and put in like Season in Austria, a really pretty map, and just went, we're going to do entirely new maps, and we're pulling everything out of the competitive pool. I think the game would be revitalized and just be brand new, interesting to watch, and exciting. And we wanted to have the kind of same effect with every map plays very differently. Like you said, Coastal is very open, but then Derailed is very much like a CS map with very straight lanes, different angles to go into bomb sites with, a primary site and a secondary site. Like one is a lot longer to go to. And that's then there's like a small map and a big map, and that's just how we wanted it to be. Everyone was very different. Whereas in many maps in CS, I always feel like you can, I know Overwatch, and you can kind of see the similarities between them. We didn't want that. So yeah, we have 4 maps in our competitive pool at early access. Very quickly, we have another one coming out, and even quicker after that, we have another one. So we've got by a couple of months after release, we'll have 6 maps in the competitive pool. And then yeah, that'll keep going all the way to early access. We'll have a few more maps, but not every month.
Right.
But yeah.
And so do you like envision having like a like, because you know Counter-Strike has like a competitive map pool that you use for matchmaking if you want to play like the actual same that the competitive circuit uses for the major system and things like that, and pretty much all tournaments because they're all kind of forced to abide by the major system. And then they have like a casual pool, so to speak, right? And you can kind of like pick which ones you want to play. Do you foresee Battalion having a similar system where there's like a set map pool that will be used in competition, and then for people playing matchmaking at home, they can either choose to abide by that or they can filter, or how do you envision that going?
You choose your map. It's just not something we do. If a map has a problem, we need to fix it and make it fun.
Mm-hmm.
We don't just dump maps in there for people to just kind of experiment with. That's not we don't have the time of the game to do that. And like I just said, like, CS probably has loads of very good maps, but people, especially FPS players, like to stick to what they know. And I think Counter-Strike has loads of great maps in their season. I always come back to season. Like, that map could be very good in Counter-Strike, but no one wants to adopt it. They just
Well, it was adopted and played in North America and ESEA and stuff for a really long time. It's just that because the major never accepted it, then everyone was like, well, shit, we have to make our map pool abide by the major map pool, and that's why you've never seen maps make it in from the community.
Exactly, but I think that's why we're like, we're not gonna let them choose maps. We're gonna force you to play in the pool. And that way we can at least, if there's a problem with a map, we should be fixing it and the community should be telling us. Now, I'm sure they'll always tell us a map isn't perfect, but there's a difference. Why you've been playing Coastal and derailed so much is because they were far from perfect. So I think they're a lot closer now. But yeah, I mean, map pool is always going to change, always going to evolve and grow, but I don't really envision us taking maps out of the pool and having like we have unranked mode and ranked mode. And ranked mode, you have slightly less cards than in unranked, but you kind of get the gist of what the game mode is. But the maps are the same. There's no like crazy mode maps.
Okay, we'll come back around to that in a second when we talk about esports. I'm kind of curious how that changes in the esports setting, but I want to kind of ask a couple of more questions. First off, just let's start getting into esports. Actually, now I really want to, like, I'm craving it to talk about it. But I know that you got some cards you have to keep to your chest. I understand that, but my job obviously is to get as much as I can, So we'll play that. We'll do that duel, but. Is Wartide to you the future? Is that going to be the esports side of this game, or like some other games, do you foresee multiple game modes being a part of esports? Like, I know you added capture the flag in the arcade, for example. I know that we have some other game modes that maybe you might have as part of the arcade or something like that. Do you think that those game types would ever make it into like an esports competition, or will esports be focused around Wartide?
Depends what you say esports is. I mean, if it
like the main tournaments or whatever. Like, obviously you might have like smaller cups for capture the flag or something. Yeah, but I meant like the main focus for esports. Yeah.
No, just don't. We're supporting Wartide, and Square Enix is supporting Wartide, and this is our game mode that we're pushing because a lot of the decisions that maybe players don't agree with up front are designed to give. I think even a meeting I had with you very early on was to add things in that make it interesting to spectate and to cast. One of the reasons we went to one-shot headshots on the default class was because you can now make these sexy, flashy shots. And that's good to watch. So CTF is very hard to follow. If you've ever watched a game of competitive Halo, it's painful. It's like Overwatch, like on steroids. Like it's so hard to watch. But I think we don't ever plan to support a different game mode competitively in a tournament. We may promote it or help out, but our prize pool and prize fund, which is pretty big considering our size, it's pretty nice. I think we're going to be pushing Wartide and that game mode, and we're going to be pushing it to evolve. I fully believe that the Wartide that you see today is not going to be the same by the end of early access in 1 year's time. I reckon the Kings will be ironed out of it, and it'll be a lot better game for it. But again, the reason we use that game mode is because it's good to watch, and it's built to be watched.
Right. So continuing on with the esports side of things, what do you think your company's approach is going to be the esports side? Because I think that, you know, for instance, with Valve, with Counter-Strike, very much hands-off. Outside of the major, it's pretty much wide open for any tournament organizer to come throw a tournament. You got your DreamHacks, you got your ESL, you got your PGL, you had CEVO, you had MLG, you had Gfinity, you had all these different people that have had pro leagues or tournaments that they've thrown, and there's an open circuit, basically, is the way to sum it up, right? But then you have a company like Blizzard who basically said Overwatch League's the only game in town for Overwatch, except for there's like Apex in Korea. But for the most part, it's Overwatch League. And then obviously Riot, it's like it's NA LCS, EU LCS. These other different regions have their leagues, but that's basically it. And if anybody else wants to run a tournament for this game, we'll maybe allow one during the off season that goes to like an IEM or something like that. But pretty much it's a closed system for it, we run it basically, right? You know, Riot owns the LCS and whatnot. So what do you think your philosophy is on how Battalion Esports will go from a developer perspective?
I mean, from the start, we've always been like community driven, right? That was the point. So I think, whilst there's definitely a problem for me, that I know the players like it with Counter-Strike, where they all get like there's loads of tournaments they compete in, lots of opportunities to make money, lots of opportunities to win, lots to watch. That's great, but I kind of want to push. I would like to see more quality over quantity. You know, like I can refer to soccer. You know, Manchester United play Chelsea twice a year, not fucking 20 times a year. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's much better when it's limited like that. It's a momentous occasion, and I think with our strategy, we are doing something in the middle, where we're not just saying here's the game, go and do what you want. We're kind of saying like this is the game. If you want to run a tournament, don't just run it. Like email us. We maybe even like I think we've spoke to some the last couple of weeks who are running ladders, just online ladders, and we were like we can give you some hardware to give away. We know a lot of hardware manufacturers, or we'll match your funding. Do you know what I mean? Like, so we're massively supporting it, but we're letting the events companies do the work, and that gives them an opportunity to grow their community as well, their competitive Battalion community, and that way you've got this nice like there's lots of options to play Battalion competitively, but it's not like a massive hammer on resources for us. It's not them doing all the work and we can help promote them. So I think it's just like a two-way street. If we want our game to be successful competitively, we absolutely need to support it. We can't just put it out there and hope. So I think us and Square Enix as well are putting their money where their mouth is and just saying, we'll support you. Get in touch with us if you want to run something. And some very big, you know, tournament organizers have done that, and we are working with them now. And to put something together, we're gonna have our plan is to have, and it's on the cards, and it's happening, but it's not done yet. Is to have a couple of majors that are run at big events, like your DreamHacks and that kind of thing. And our majors will be run there.
But it'll be like your branding, like it'll be like this is the Bulkhead Interactive, or this is the Square Enix major, or whatever, like we call them Valve majors.
If you're in a major, head to DreamHack, let's say. You know, it's so anyone can enter. I think they're still open, which is, you know, it's. I want people to play this game like and have fun and feel like they have an opportunity to actually win and grow and become better at it. That goal needs to be achievable for people. And you know, if 300 people want to enter an open tournament, go for it. We'll just seed the top 20 pro teams or 10 pro teams or whatever, and go from there. One cool thing I want to mention though about our majors that no one else does is that if you win a major, one of the prizes is a gold skin with your name on it, and your team and the event. So let's say, you know, IEM Oakland 2018. It says that on it, Battalion, first place. It's the only gold skins in the game. We pick the weapon and make it for you. It's got your name on it, so there's 5 for your team, and that's tradable. So you could sell it for like $1,000, but there's only one in the world, and it came from the guy who won the tournament. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's a really cool prize. I mean, it's not. Sure. You know, we've definitely got cash as well. Cash prizes needs to get the economy growing for a professional scene. But we do also have these really cool skins that go with the events.
That's pretty sick. So I guess you're kind of calling it like a semi-open system. Like you're willing to let like a DreamHack or an ESL or whatever throw a tournament, but it's like you kind of want some level of guidance or say on whether or not it goes or not, because it's your IP, right?
We aren't going to stop anyone. We aren't going to stop anyone running a tournament, but we're saying come to us because we can help you. Like we can make your tournament even better. And you know, maybe it's small guys as well, but we work with the big guys now too to make the tournaments as big as they could possibly be and
of course,
maximize the promotion around them. Like for instance, if you went and made a tournament and didn't ever tell us, we couldn't give you golden skins for the winners. But if you talk to us, we can make that happen, because that takes time and communication with the developer. And by, you know, the publisher kind of taking a back seat and saying we understand that the developer knows what they're doing, we kind of cut out a middleman, and they're just really supportive of us as individuals. And yeah, we're not going to stop anyone from running a tournament, but if you're going to run a tournament, tell us, because we want to fucking help you.
Right, I get what you're saying.
Free help.
So putting tournaments aside, right? Because I think that's like one level, like having like a circuit of tournaments that people can play in and all that good stuff. Do you ever foresee there being like a Battalion Pro League? And if so, would you guys want to be the ones running it, or would it be kind of like Counter-Strike where we had like an ESL Pro League, we have ECS, we have E-League, we have a bunch of these different leagues running simultaneously? Do you foresee that happening in Battalion, or do you foresee it being like there's going to be one league and, you know, X is going to run it?
I see it being more like Counter-Strike, at least with the first version of Battalion. I see it like, you know, it's not Overwatch. You put in absolutely millions, probably like 25 times our budget into you know, making Overwatch League, let alone the game. So
right,
you know, it's there's got to be like a line, and really our game the whole time has been about collaboration with the community. Why would we stop that here? So I don't see us ever really stopping that. We'll do it the CS way. But I don't expect to be as big as CS either. Not at least this year. You know, we've got a lot of buzz right now, which is great. But we need to convert that, and we need to put in the work to you know, make it safe to play competitively. If you know what I mean. Like actually, it's going somewhere. And luckily, we have the connections now that the game is going. It will be a competitive game. It is being supported as a competitive game, no doubt. There is money behind it and big companies, big names. But, you know, that means we need to keep updating it and making sure it's a fun game to play competitively.
How soon do you think it'll be before we start seeing some tournaments for this game? You know, obviously early access starts in February. That's when the game's
stuff, or just like online as well.
Both. I mean, whatever information you're willing to give, I guess, is my point, because I'm not really sure. I could just be like, tell us about esports and Battalion, like what's happening. Like, so I guess it just depends on. Oh, okay.
Like I know of a few ladders starting up with cash prizes from February 1st, I think. So yeah, I mean there's a lot of opportunity out there now. It's gonna start. I'm not saying that it'll be like smooth sailing the first month, but I believe that this is a game. If you want to be a professional gamer, this is a very good way to get involved, because obviously you're getting in the ground floor. It's not like Counter-Strike. You played 3 versions of it for 15 years. It's brand new. And all us old COD guys are ancient anyway, except for Mazzarini, who's somehow still winning PUBG tournaments. But you know, it's a good time to get involved because it's brand new to the market. So I'd start playing day one, practice. And I think competitive matchmaking Wartide releases 1 week after the game. So you have to start playing, rank up to level 10. You have to actually get to level 10 to play. And then on the 8th of February, which is a Thursday, we go live on competitive. So you got that week to practice, and then you go in live.
There you go. What about offline tournaments? How long in the future do you think that would be?
I can't say because
great.
I'm allowed to. But
there we go. I found the boundary line.
We have basically in Q2 we have our first major. I think we have that. That's not signed yet, but that's the plan. So and then Q3 we have an update plan called the competitive update. We basically do our updates Q1, 2, 3, 4, and these are our major game updates. Q2 we see some cool things like potentially new weapons. There's 2 things coming in that I can't say any more about, and that'll change the meta quite a lot. And then in Q3 we see everything that's competitive about the game overhauled. The game mode by Q3 should be balanced to where we want it to be. but also just like spectator UI, just everything it's ready for a competitive game, and then we should start seeing some bigger money tournaments come in, in the some big money. So looking forward to it.
There you go. All right, so some rapid fire questions in the interview, basically. So these are mostly community questions. You kind of already mentioned this, like, literally just now. This is a question I was about to ask, but I was going to say, because, like, right now in the Wartide system, we have, like, these different classes and stuff like that, and then they all seem to, like, have, like, a specialty gun that's associated with the class, and so a lot of people were wondering, will we see new classes or guns ever added to the card system?
Yes.
All right, just leave it at that. That's all you can say. Also, someone asked, will they be new armies ever added to the game? Because right now you have, like, the Americans and the Germans. Will, like, Russians or Brits or Italians or anything ever be added to the game?
Yes.
And that's it? That's all we get?
Sorry, right?
Fair enough. That we both have a job to do here, so I'll respect the line that I give.
Keep going.
All right, so with that in mind, would it be guns that would, like, maybe just simply replace what we already have, or would it be, like, just in addition to?
Good question. I think it'll be an addition. We'll add in a new card effectively, but that could change. We'll see how the balancing goes with the game mode. We might just not like a weapon. It might just not work. We may replace the default classes. Who knows? There's a few options out there, but we're working on the guns right now. We're gonna get them in game. We know what they are. We know how they're gonna play, and we're gonna start tweaking them from now on. But the first month, the programming team is entirely on fixing bugs. That the Q1 update is all about stability and making sure everyone can play the game with no issues, no crashing, that kind of thing. Then Q2 is the content update. Then Q3 is a competitive one. So Q2, you should start seeing the new weapons and that kind of thing.
So there you go, folks. If you wanted to know, possibility for new guns, yes. Possibility for new armies, yes. I think a lot of people were worried about that. So there you go. Now you know. Okay, game modes. How many game modes are we going to see in release? Like, obviously, Wartide competitive, but there's the arcade thing. So what all game modes are we going to be having at release?
I think we're going to keep working on them because, arcade's like a really important part of the game. Battalion isn't just solely competitive. It's just that's where the main part of the game happens. But, I think we like the idea of developing what's it called, like an ET style game mode, and looking at the ET community and saying, what did you guys want in the game, with a mechanic or an engineer kind of thing. I'm not saying we started that. We've got plans for it, and we haven't even got a schedule for when it comes out, but I think it's what we want to do is to make that kind of mode happen. But for that, you also need entirely custom maps. You can't just do it on, like, Liberation. Like, you need a vehicle with animations that works. Doing like a push game mode, I think it'd be fun. So we're gonna look at that, and then we hit that ET mark, and those guys will be nice and happy.
But at launch, we basically have Wartide, Capture the Flag, TDM, and anything else?
Not announced yet.
Okay.
We're looking at what modes, but to be honest, we have Domination. I think you said Domination.
No, I did not.
Yeah, we have Domination, but we have Free for All in there. We're not releasing it straight away because Free for All is a bit spammy, a bit small and annoying. But I think after Q1, then we're gonna look at what game modes do we want in the full game. We're also gonna start looking at the modding community and how we can support them, offer up money for prizes, mod teams, and for like mappers and that kind of thing.
Speaking of modding and mapping tools, that was another question I just want to throw in there. Is that going to be available from the start, or something that's going to be developed in the future? And could we see, like, say someone makes a map, could we see that added to the competitive map pool or something like that if it's good enough?
Absolutely. I think what would happen if they made a map that we liked and we thought was good, we'd take it off them and say we're gonna just go around and make sure it works, do performance on it, that kind of thing, and then release it with it in the game if they're happy for that is. So we're gonna look at that, and that's definitely one thing. But in terms of mod tools coming out, we have the mod tools working. We just need to package them up, and that does take time and make sure it blends with the game. And we've committed all our programmers to doing the fixes in month 1, month 2, and making sure everyone can play the game. So it's a Q2 update, which is the content update, and Q2 is when we'll see all the mod tools come out, and people can start making stuff for the end of early access, if you know what I mean. So hopefully over these few months that people will make interesting things we can add into the game.
All right, so next question. Is there already a working spectator mode for this game, and can you tell me anything about it?
Yeah, it works really well. To be honest, it's better than PUBG's when it launched. I mean, PUBG's is really good now, but...
Do I get to John Madden some shit on it, Brammer? That's what we need to know. That's what the people want to know.
Madden, you're making me feel old.
I need to draw some stuff. What do we got?
Oh, actually, you can draw on the map, yeah. You can
Okay, sick.
You could do it in, like, the player mode if you want to, like... I constantly draw dicks on Howard's, like...
Yeah.
When he's
obviously.
Like,
yeah.
It's just... But, yeah, no, he got me a few times with that. But, no, you can definitely just draw on it, like, and do strats, but that does translate over to the spectator side as well, the casting side. But again, that's part of that Q3 competitive update, making sure that it's ready for competitive in the big money and big time. So.
Obviously, I am interested in that, and I'm definitely down if y'all want any more thoughts on that. I really want to see the spec mode be good. I think Counter-Strike did a fantastic job with speccing a first-person shooter of this nature, but I definitely think there's some things that Counter-Strike doesn't have that I'd love to see a game like yours have, so we can definitely chat if you want to about that at some point. Definitely. Demo system. People want to know about like replays, a demo system like Counter-Strike has. Is there anything like that in place for Battalion?
Or will be? I think it's intended for Q4 update.
There you go.
Mode it's called.
All right, let's talk about some other things real quick. Is there going to be some type of offline game mode that people can use for practice? Someone mentioned to me, and I remember this a little bit, that in Pro Mod, there's like a local mode where you could follow grenades and smokes and stuff like that, and you could kind of like learn things and practice timings. Is there going to be something like that for Battalion? And if so, when would we maybe see it?
We're looking at it. I haven't put a date on it because I kind of want to push for it just to get it out in people's hands. But it might just be like a server-side mod because we don't have the mod tools out till Q2. So I can't confirm, but we're very aware of it, and getting a nade tool in there would be very good. But you can already, like, if you if you host your own dedicated server just from multiplayer or whatever, you can literally just type give grenades 5,000. You'll have 5,000 grenades. So you can, test, same with smokes and that. You give yourself any weapon, and you could do that. Like an offline with bots mode like you have in Counter-Strike, basically. We have bots, but they're like the dumbest bots you've ever seen. They lick each other. They're really dumb.
Well, I don't think people are looking for... Yeah.
We use it for testing performance, mostly. And there's one other question you asked at the start of that. I forget what it was, though.
Oh, it's like, offline mode for practice, local mode where camera would follow grenades and smokes and stuff like that.
Which is pretty cool because it's actually based off COD World War II's training map, which is really good, except for the fact that you got loot crates dropping everywhere. But you have you go to the range and you just shoot down there, and you get little hit markers and that kind of thing. And we've got the the CS kind of, what's it called, CL_ show hit marker or whatever. We've got that up there and just on the range, so you can see and learn spray patterns and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's pretty cool. You can also practice strafe jumping distances and crouch jump, and we've got like V max to the millimeter strafe jumps and crouch jumping, so you can really get good at that stuff.
There you go. So a training map is going to be there for you folks. Is there going to be, like, people in Counter-Strike love to be able to warm up, like deathmatch obviously is one, but Counter-Strike also had like aim map, like specific maps for warming up aim, not just playing a DM on a competitive map.
We do have an aim map, but we don't have like actual, we're not doing it in matchmaking. You'd have to join a dedicated server for it, but we have an aim map. It's like Wawa, if you ever played that in COD 2.
Okay. And I think also, like, Counter-Strike had, I don't know if you ever heard of this, I think this is going to be up to third-party people, but like a duel system where it lines you up in duels and stuff like that. I don't know if you've ever seen that before. It's actually really neat. But people were asking about that as well. So.
Do you mean the 2v2 thing?
That, or just like it would set you up in 1v1 duels, like on different spots on the map.
World War II duels. No, we don't have that. Sorry. We can make you a big headquarters with loot crates and everything if you want.
There you go. And then I would be obviously a fool if I didn't ask you about them skins, Brammer. That's what we all want to know. Talked about how there's going to be war chests. What's pricing look like for something like that? I think people were curious about that, and like, because obviously like CS:GO case, I think it's like $250 USD to get a key to open a case, and you get cases like randomly dropped to you. How do you see the war chest system or whatever? I think that's what it's called. How's it work?
Yeah, war chest is what we call it.
How's it work?
There's no keys. You just buy the chest straight from us. You can't sell or trade the chest, but you can trade the skins. I can't say the price right now because I'm just waiting on it being finalized. But it's less than Counter-Strike. Less than Counter-Strike's crates, and so it's like less than half of what it is when you buy the key as well. So I think yeah, I like the way it works. It's kind of a blend of Counter-Strike and Overwatch because we have the original war chest crate, it's called, which has like all the basic skins in it, and then we have which is like 80 to 100 skins roughly, or variants I think. But then you have every kind of few months we'll do a timed event crate, and there'll be themes. So the first one is the Aces High crate, and that comes out after the first month I think, and that only lasts for 2 weeks. Buy crates then, buy the skins, and then they won't be available for another year, so you can sell them on the store. They'll increase in value, that kind of thing. And I think they're all based around like World War II planes and pinup girls and that kind of thing, and they look really cool. So it's nice. We've got this little ecosystem going, and all the money from that goes back into tournaments and events and prize. It also goes into creating new maps, new content. So when people are buying loot crates, they're not buying like the developers' Ferraris. They're buying a new map or a new gun. It's nice to kind of have that out there in the open.
Is there a way to earn skins just by playing the game without having to buy a chest? Like, is there a separation between those two?
Chest, yeah.
What's that?
Like every time you rank up in XP, you'll get a new chest.
Okay, there you go. People were asking, is there going to be any skins given to like alpha people, beta backers, or anything like that, like special Kickstarter skins? Or people were asking about that.
Yeah, if they back the Kickstarter and the Humble Bundle, yeah, one of them. Then they get the skins.
We also saw a cool personalized Shroud skin for the STG. Is there going to be more stuff like that coming out in the future for influencers, or just like specialty skins that are going to be available as well?
Yeah, obviously there's the big golden tournament ones, but yeah, there's definitely some more YouTubers that want skins and Twitch streamers, but we'll have to wait and see. I think we don't want to get too crazy with it. Shroud's gonna be the first one because he's been super supportive and he's really cool about the game, and obviously he's the right type of guy to play it. We don't just want a PewDiePie skin, obviously, but I like that they're signed. There's only 15 of them. It's not really about money. It's more about like each for the streamer and for us as well and for the player. So if you have one of those 15 signed skins, then it will have at one point been owned by Shroud. I don't even have this skin. I've seen it and tested it, but I've never it won't ever be on my account unless he wants to give me one. That would be great.
Shroud, hook us up.
Yeah.
There you go. Shroud, listen, hook us up. Anyway, so I had just a couple of final questions and we'll be done. One question I just wanted to ask is, like, through this alpha process, what do you think has been some of the best feedback you've gotten, and what do you think has been some of the hardest things you had to deal with like communication with the community throughout, and just making me a final message to the community as the early access is coming?
I think the best thing they've done is they've been really patient with us. Which is, that's really hard for a dev team to get that. A lot of gamers are very frustrating. They forget that developers are people. I have a wife and a dog, and I want to go home and see my dog. But I'm my wife. But I think
wife, of course.
Forgot that one. I want to be able to go home and have a life as well. And really, I want to go home and play games too. But the sad part is I've made this game, and it's I've seen so much of it that it's not I really want to play it, but I want to play it not knowing all of the insides and what's coming and that kind of thing. So it's I think it's really good that our community have been so forgiving with us and given us time, allowed us to make mistakes, allowed us to delay alphas, allowed us to fuck up a million times, and that is absolutely essential to game development. That's why Activision don't show you everything up front. That's why Valve have closed doors, because they don't want you to see all the work they're putting in and mistakes they might make. So as long as they continue that into early access, and I really need people to vocalize that to the new community members that, oh, well, they have lives, they are working hard, because I think we've proven that we work hard. I've been here like till midnight past every day.
Oh yeah, I've been in the Discord. I've seen the changes between alphas. Like, you can definitely tell this game's come a long way in the last like year of alphas and things. Obviously, I haven't been able to talk to anybody about any of it because it's been under NDA. But like, if people were to see like what Alpha 1 looked like in comparison to what they will see at early access, it's definitely been a lot of improvement and tweaking, and the game's definitely much better and will continue to get better. Yeah, I think I can like echo that message from an outside perspective, from someone who's been there, you know, for about a year now, I guess, kind of following the game.
2 years, I think, nearly, man.
Yeah, actually, I did back the Kickstarter pretty early. I can't remember when the first time I talked to you or Howard was, but I guess it has been.
Early on.
Yeah. So I guess I can just like from a third party perspective can say that, yeah, definitely they do work hard. I think one of the big messages people need to take away from this interview when we were talking about Wartide, when we were talking about certain maps, like it's not as if these people have put them in like, that's it, it's done, it's over, move on to the next thing. Like, no, like there will be more tweaking, there will be balancing.
Yeah.
They're open to feedback. Don't feel like it's not one of those situations where you're at the zoo and you can't feed the animals. Like, no, like tell these people what you feel, what you think. They're obviously going to listen to you. And I think it's just a balancing act of understanding, like, just they will listen to you. And if you have something good, they will hear you out, especially if they hear it constantly or they feel something themselves. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be able to tend to every single need or desire of every single person out there like that. There's a balancing act that has to happen there, right?
I think people are going to realize very quickly that we just kind of we don't, because we're in the public, we're going to have to take more shit as well, but we aren't going to really accept it. Like, for instance, the other day I was giving out codes everywhere, and then someone said, oh, the developers are dickheads because he didn't get a code. So I just stopped giving out codes in that entire channel, because just no one should call us dickheads, because we worked really hard on this and it's not worth it. You know, I don't make much money doing this, and this is a lifestyle choice to you know, I'm making a game I want to make, something I get to make my dream game. So I'm not necessarily doing this for money. A lot of it goes back into making the game and just paying the staff we have working on this game. And so I'm not gonna sit there and take shit, and none of my staff and none of my team will either. So
to those people out there who want to give feedback, what would you tell them is the best way to do it? Like, what's the best way to reach out? What's the best thing to do? Like, what's the best practice of giving feedback, I guess?
Really, it's just like anything that's Battalion focused, I'm always reading. So like, I basically go to the gym every day, and between sets of doing things, I will sit there for a minute or whatever and just read through and reply to something. I'll do a workout and reply to something. And I think if you tweet me between 4:30 and 6:30, you're a lot more likely to get a response. But Reddit, all this stuff, it's just, if I find something interesting, I will reply. But a lot of the time I'm reading it, but it takes so long to reply that I can't. I'll do like a mass reply in an update or something. But I read basically everything, and I know basically everyone in the community. So yeah, it's cool.
So now that you're finally about to release this game, how does it feel? Like you've been through 2 years of development. Obviously, you'll continue to develop, but it's here now, right? I mean, it's on the doorstep. How does it feel to finally be here? What does it mean to you?
There's a lot of like "told you so," which is probably not a good thing to do, but I kind of I'm one of those people that's very emotional about things I do, and I get fueled by people saying you can't do it, and a lot of people kind of said like, oh, the Kickstarter would be shit and that kind of thing, and the game is better than I thought it would be in the end. So I think I'm pretty exhausted, and the updates are going to become slower now because we're not going to work 14-hour days. We're going to get a life back, but we're also going to be able to see people playing Battalion, and I can't wait to go to that first major, and I want to be the guy giving the trophy to the people who win. That's my made it moment. I want to do that, and I think I'm really looking forward to it. So, any
last words, thoughts before we close the interview that you would like to give out to the community?
No, just buy the game on day one, because then we can trick Steam's algorithms into putting us on the front page and getting more sales so we can get more people playing. There you go.
Speaking of which, this will be the final question. What is success to you? Like, what is there, like a goal in mind? Is there a number in mind that you want at launch? To you, what would be a success, I guess?
People are wondering. We smashed all of our targets for beta, like absolutely demolished them. So I haven't, which has meant that it's had a knock-on effect of everything kind of being like, well, if we did, 25 times what we thought we'd do here, maybe we'll do 25 times here. So I don't have any projections, and I wouldn't really want to publish that anyway.
Yeah, of course.
But I think I'm proud of what we've accomplished here, and the fact that not many people ever get to attempt to do their favorite thing, their dream thing, and I got to actually make a lot of people's dream game and my own dream game. And if it doesn't do well or whatever, it fails eventually. It won't be on me, and it won't be on the community, and it won't be on the game, because it is good. It'll just be on the fact that times moved on and people wanted something else. But our goal is to blend, that old fun with new games and the good things they bring, and provide a new experience for Counter-Strike players who may be feeling a little bit tired of the same thing they've been seeing. So if you're interested, February 1st, 5 p.m. UK time, then come and play with us.
There you go. That's it. Thanks so much for those tuning in. Please follow and subscribe. I'm sure we'll have more interviews with Brammer or other developers in the future as the game progresses and as more updates come out. We're going to keep that engagement going. And yeah, so hopefully we will see you out there on February 1st, everyone.